I don't get to say this very often about scriptures that we use. But this passage this week, this last one, this is a fun one to talk about. It's an interesting one to talk about. And in this case, interesting isn't code for confusing or perplexing. And I don't mean it's interesting because of the theology that's buried in it, and there is theology in it. But it's interesting because the passage itself has these stories within it that are just fascinating to me. Within just a couple of dozen verses, we have a handful of little slices of life that tell us what life was like on the road for these missionaries 2,000 years ago. So let's break it down and look at those different slices. First, there's this story, very early part of the reading. It's about what's struck me as sort of a New Testament groupie. The slave girl. And secondly, there's a story about businessmen who are taking revenge on somebody else for their business being ruined. And then there's this law and order moment when Paul and Silas get thrown in jail. And there's this Mission Impossible moment where Paul and Silas suddenly find themselves free. And that's followed by this moment where the jailer who figures he's better off dead now is about to take his own life. And then finally there's the conversion story at the very end where the jailer and his family, the whole household, are saved. It's just a great gospel. Those people being interesting, you just can't beat this stuff. But apart from the sheer drama and just sitting back and enjoying the story and the different plot twists that are within it, does it mean anything to us today? I think it does. We'll find our way there. But first, let's go back and we'll start with this slave girl. She evidently was possessed by a spirit or a demon, depending on the translation you look at, who was able to see the future and able to divine things about what was going on, things unseen. And she could do this for a price, for her owners. But then she sees Paul and Silas and she recognizes them for who they are, or at least for what they are. She won't be quiet. She follows them from place to place, we're told, for several days. All the time telling people that these men are slaves to God. That they're here to proclaim salvation. And in and of itself, that kind of sounds like a pretty good opening act if you're going into different places to preach. You want to have somebody say, hey, he's working for God. So that's cool. But I guess after a few days, it gets to be a little bit wearing. I read on Facebook last night, Elaine, that you were on the 100-mile garage sale yesterday. It just sounds like such heaven. But imagine if every time you went up to a new place, a new sales spot, somebody was following you and they went, there goes Elaine. She's a teacher. And she's a way speaker. I'm thinking eventually the novelty would kind of wear off. And it did. So Paul, when he had enough, he zapped the spirit right out of her. And she lost her ability to divine the future. And that meant her owners lost the ability to make money off her. So the owner is now facing financial ruin, having this investment That's no good to them. They did what any business owner today would do. They took Paul and Silas to court. But because interfering with business was not in and of itself a crime, they borrowed a page from the crucifixion narrative, which they may or may not have realized at the time. And they charged that these two foreigners were talking crazy. They were getting the people all riled up. They were outsiders. They were teaching people things that they weren't supposed to be teaching them. And then the crowd joined in with them, which is a familiar story as well. So there's such an uproar that the city fathers, the magistrates, have the missionaries stripped and beaten and thrown into prison, and the jailer is warned very sternly to make sure that they don't get out. So they are locked away, not only locked into cells, but they are locked into stocks so that they can't move within the cells. That scene closes. We have Paul and Silas sitting in the darkness in stocks. And we're told that they are praying into the night. That they're singing hymns. Hymns to God. In my mind's eye, I like to think they were singing spirituals. I can imagine Silas sitting there in the corner playing the harmonica, and Paul is singing, "Nobody knows the troubles I've seen." It's this perfect scene of people in jail. And then the walls start to tremble. The foundation itself of the building starts to shake. This picture, you're there in the middle of the night, sitting there in the darkness, and these guys are singing and praying over here, and all of a sudden the building around you and the earth beneath you start to move. If you're the jailer, wherever he was, somewhere not where they were, if you're the jailer, all of a sudden you hear this unmistakable sound of the cell doors being flung open. Chains dropping off. And in the middle of the chaos, your mind flashes forward to the next morning. You're meeting with the city fathers, the magistrates, to explain what happened to them and why the jail seems to be empty. And your mind fixes on that one moment where they look at you and say, "You had one job. Keep these guys in jail." And you fail. So apparently the jailer had the worst bosses ever, because he decides to pull out a sword and just kill himself now rather than have that meeting. That seems a little extreme. Looking back over almost 40 years, I can truthfully say there haven't been many meetings where sticking myself with a sword just to get out of the meeting seemed like a good option. Been a couple. More so during the meeting. But then when he's just about to finish himself off, Paul calls out of the darkness and he says, "Don't do it! We're still here." Imagine the sense of relief that he must have felt at that point. Great moment. So he is struck by their mercy then, and the jailer goes and he brings them out. He's just so happy that they're not gone. So happy that he's not going to have to deal with the magistrates. And he asks them what he needs to do to be saved. And they tell him. And that gets to the heart of the story. Because they speak the word of the Lord to him. Some of the manuscripts say that they read the word of God to him.
which seems a little bit unlikely just because there probably weren't any Gospels yet written at this point. This was early on. It's more likely that they spoke to him. But however, they conveyed to him the message of God. They conveyed to him the great good news of Jesus Christ. And in view of what they said, and in view of how they acted, and this miracle that had taken place, they get home with him. And we're told that he brought them out and he washed their wounds and fed them. And the jailer and his entire household were baptized that night. And they all rejoiced that he had become a believer in God. As I said, that's really the heart of the story. All the rest of it is really fun reading. It's interesting. But it leads up to this key point. Where they present the gospel to him and he accepts it. In many ways, this is almost one of the hearts, at least, of the gospel. It's one of the hearts of the kingdom of heaven that Jesus set before us. It's a story of unexpected twists and turns and different things that happen. But in the end, the payoff of the story is not that Christians are triumphant or that Christ is triumphant. It's not that these missionaries of the way have triumphed over the forces of the world. Not exactly, at least. Because it's not about winning. It's not about winning a conflict between the good guys and the bad guys, at least. It's about these missionaries who are willing to submit to oppression because they had the love of Jesus Christ within their heart. And they knew what they were doing was right. So they accepted what was done. And they just continued to preach what was right. The story is about loving those who don't love you. Paul and Silas had every reason not to love the jailer. But when the moment came that he was going to end his own life, they stopped him. They didn't say, oh good, now we can get out, we can flee, and we can go spread the word somewhere where we're going to be appreciated. They stopped him. And they shared the word of God with him again. They shared the good news of Jesus Christ. Realistically speaking, that's a model of conflict that most of us would struggle with today. Because as we learn, as we grow up, we know the idea of conflict is that there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. And if we're on God's side, then we want God to be the winner. So the instinct is to defeat whoever we're up against. The truth is, God doesn't need that kind of help from us. Because if it was just about power, if it was just about the exercise of force, sheer exercise of will, nobody could doubt that God could win that particular conflict without even lifting a non-existent hand. The quake showed that. The quake released them, but they stayed. It was a clear message to everybody who was present that if God didn't want them in prison, God could have gotten them out. But instead of winning by getting out, their real mission there was to witness. Their mission was not to escape, but it was to preach. Their mission was to live a witness that said, we're not afraid of the things of this world. Our concern lies with the things of the next world. Our concern is with the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of man cannot hold us or challenge us because we belong to the kingdom of God. No matter what kind of chains bind us. That message is at odds with everything that we're taught and everything that we hear in our culture. But it really is the message of Jesus Christ. Because Jesus did not teach about winning. He taught about tolerance. Not the kind of tolerance where I'll put up with what you say even though you're an idiot. The kind of tolerance that says, I understand where you're coming from. And I'll listen. Then I want to talk to you too. He didn't promote victory as much as he promoted patience. Love your enemies. Teach your neighbors. Witness to your friends. Witness to your community. It's not about breaking down somebody else's arguments and convincing them that you're right. It's about showing and teaching that Jesus is right for them. God could have stopped what happened to Paul and Silas at any point in this particular adventure. He could have stopped the beatings. He could have snatched them out of jail and plucked them down somewhere else. But instead, he set them free and he put it in their hearts to stay so that they could witness to the jailer and to his family. As children of God and disciples of Jesus, sometimes we will find ourselves in these conflict situations. Or we're at odds with somebody, or we're at odds with some people. But if we're true to the teachings of Jesus, we won't look at those situations and think, how can I win this one? Not even, how can I make this a win for Jesus? Instead, the question should be, how can I make this a win for the person who's standing against me? How can I help them find Jesus? If you just have to keep score, then we can count a win when we can lead somebody else, or when we can help lead somebody else to a relationship with Jesus. That's a win for love, and it's a win for life. And it's what we are called to do.